The introduction to your speech is written after you write the body of your speech. It is, I think, for lots of audiences, it is very important because that is when your audience makes some determinations about you and your presentation. Often, if it is something that they want to opt into, or is this something that they can opt out of? And so the introduction is an important part to the persuasiveness or effectiveness of your presentation. As a speaker, you have 5 burdens in the introduction. We ask that you do these 5 things. The first thing and the last thing both have a star on the screen, and those need to come at the beginning and at the end, and that the middle can go in any order that makes sense and flows as you're preparing your speech. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have an AGD, which is an attention getting device. How can you grab your audience's attention? Some people call this a hook. What is it that you will say to draw your audience into your speech? Now, I'm sure many of you have heard speeches where people say, "Good afternoon, good morning, how's everybody feeling?" All of those types of statements. And there's nothing wrong with those. It's just such a missed opportunity because the audience is so attentive to begin with your name. Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm going to talk about X, rather than thinking of something creative that will hook them. So, you could have a story, you could have a statistic, you could have a startling statement, you could have a joke if it was funny. How can you draw the audience into you as a speaker? After you have gained the audience's attention, you're going to move into one of the other 3 elements. One is to introduce the main idea to the audience. What is your topic? What is your thesis? What is your purpose? What are you there to do? Lots of people want to begin their speech there, and instead of starting with the attention getter, they tell us their main idea and then do the attention getter. But again, that really your audience is not as attentive during after you have after the first 10 seconds. So you want to start really strong. So you're going to have your audience's attention, then you're going to tell them what you're going to talk about, like what your main idea is. And then the other 2 things that you need to do is you need to explain or amplify the significance of your topic, the relevance of your topic, the timeliness of your topic. All of those are really important. So, for example, if you chose to give a speech, your informative speech in this class on how roads are paved, like the process of paving a road is much more complex than I had ever known. And so you would explain why it's important. Now, obviously, if you're a bicyclist and you live in Muncie, and because of a strategy they use to pave the roads, we have premature potholes, then that poses like a physical risk to you. It's dangerous to drive a bicycle on a road with a lot of potholes. Or if you drive a car, it might cost you a lot of money because you might blow a tire. So you would talk about the importance of that, the relevance of it, or the significance of it, and maybe the timeliness of it. When do potholes start making an appearance? And I would think that that would most likely be at the end of winter and the beginning of spring. After you have amplified it, or maybe before, you are going to describe your credibility. Why are you the person to talk about it? So sometimes your credibility is that you've done a lot of research. So maybe you went on down a rabbit hole and have become, the resident expert on how roads are paved. And so maybe you have knowledge from your research, or perhaps your expertise comes because in the summer, last summer you spent working for your city and you were on the crew that actually, paved some roads. Or maybe you have some sort of credibility because of a relationship that you have. Now, obviously, I don't know much about roads. And so I would struggle to give a speech on that topic because I don't really have any expertise on it. So it really helps us know a little bit about why we should trust what you have to say. So you've gained the audience's attention, you've established a main idea, you've told me why it's important, it's significant or timely or relevant to your audience, and that you are the ideal person, or at least somebody that they should trust when they hear information from you about it. Now, the last thing that you should always do in your introduction is prepare your audience for the body. That could come in the form of a preview. We're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, or perhaps it could be instructions or just even a promise to your audience that by the time I'm done, you will know how to blah, blah, blah. So, those are the burdens that you have in a speech. And in one of the things that we are asking you to do alongside this video is to watch the introduction of this TED Talk. It's Catherine Price's TED Talk, Why Having Fun is a Secret to a Healthier Life. And after you watch it, which is only the first 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you will find that the attention getter is very clear. She begins by saying, it's a lot harder than it seems like it should be, actually feeling alive. And then she goes on to talk a little bit about, um, you know, feeling alive and how exhausted we are all the time. Then she introduces or frames the main idea by saying, I'm here to tell you that I have figured out what to do about it. We need to have more fun. That is her thesis. It's a persuasive speech convincing us that we need to commit to having more fun. Then she talks a little bit about the significance or the relevance. She ties it to the audience. She says that we scroll through social media for fun, but that's actually makes us feel bad. So that's not very fun. In fact, she says we say things like, that was so fun. We should do that again when we didn't think it was fun. And then one of the other things she does is she prepares us for the audience. So she says, so today I want to propose to you a new, more precise definition of what fun is. I want to reveal some ways in which it is astonishingly good for us. And I want to give you some suggestions for things that you can start doing right now to experience the power for yourself. And then she says, I've been doing it for a couple years now, and it's amazing to see how my areas have unfolded. I don't think that she does a very good job of offering a statement of credibility. And remember, I said that you had 5 burdens as a speaker. Well, the thing with a TED Talk is that usually there's a program, and in the program, they describe the credentials of the people that are talking. And so, as you can see, Catherine Price, which you can find on the website, she is the author of this book that's called How to Break Up with Your Phone, the 30-Day Plan to Take Back Your Life. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That is a book she wrote, but the other book that she wrote is The Power of Fun, How to Feel Alive Again. So her credibility is already there. So if your audience knows everything about you, then you don't necessarily have to have a credibility statement if it's just obvious. If the Surgeon General is at a press conference and talking about health related things, he doesn't really have to say, hey, I'm the Surgeon General and I know a lot about health. We know his position and we know he's qualified to talk about it. In addition to your introduction, I wanted to talk a little bit about clinchers or conclusions. Once again, there are 3 burdens in the conclusions. The first thing is you're going to signal that the end is coming. You are going to reinforce or review the thesis and main points, and then you're going to offer some sort of closure. You want to create a lasting impression. And so if we go back to Catherine Price's conclusion, her conclusion starts at 11:50 or 11:49 on the TED Talk. And it begins by her signaling that the end is coming. And she actually does this by taking a few steps away from where she was at. So she conveys to the audience, I'm moving in a new direction. I'm coming to the end by taking a couple of steps. And then the next thing she says is she reinforces her main ideas by saying, I'm more creative and more productive. I'm more resilient. I laugh more. Making sure that I'm having enough fun has made me a better partner, a better parent, and a better friend. And then she offers some closure at the end. She says, fun is sunshine. It's a distillation of life's energy. And the more often we experience it, the more we feel like we are actually alive. And she, comes to the conclusion and offers closure both in her writing and the way that she delivers it. A couple of things to keep in mind about introductions and conclusions. One is the primacy recency effect. That is, people remember the beginning and the end. And so you need to make sure that those two are well rehearsed because it is the first impression and the last impression that you leave your audience. Your introduction should be about 20% of your total time. And so I see speeches where they just jump into the body too fast, or I see ones that they carry on half of their total time is the introduction, and that's too long. So the sweet spot is 20% for the introduction and 10% for the end. So you as a speaker should have a clear beginning, that's your introduction, the body, and then the conclusion. And then thinking about the ways in which all of those fit together to create a nice little bow on a package is really important. And also, we'll be able to convey to your audience the importance of all of those different parts of the speech.